I'll be honest with you, the first time, I realized someone had built an entire village on my land. I thought I was hallucinating. I'd spent the previous night repairing a broken generator, hiking through snow, and dealing with a stubborn mountain storm. But hallucination or not, the scene was unmistakably real. 9 tiny riverfront cottages lined up like smug little trespassers, smoke drifting from chimneys, tourists drinking cocoa on my riverbank, and all of them built without my permission. Let me rewind. I own 30 acres of rugged, mountain land tucked along a river that twists through pine forests and glacial runoff. My property line runs right through a narrow bend. Stunning views, perfect fishing, and complete privacy. Or so I thought. Then Karen happened. Karen wasn't just any Karen. She was the self-appointed queen of the Willow Ridge HOA, which bordered the lower portion of my mountain. She loved bylaws the way dragons love gold. She wielded rules like weapons, and she talked to people like she was doing them a favor by breathing in their direction. But even for her, this was bold. The cottages were adorable in that Pinterest vacation sort of way. Cedar siding, cute lanterns, river rock pathways, except every nail, board, and brick sat smack in the middle of my deeded land. And someone had been renting them out. For profit. At first I suspected squatters. Maybe a rogue contractor. Maybe rich city folks who thought finders keepers applied to real estate. But then I saw the Wi-Fi name broadcast from the cluster. Willow Ridge HOA Riverside Retreats. HOA. HOA. I stood there gripping my thermos while something cold crawled down my spine. An HOA building revenue-generating vacation cottages on privately owned mountain land? That wasn't audacity. That was lunacy mixed with arrogance. Baked over a fire of, who's gonna stop me? I marched toward the nearest cottage. A couple sat in Adirondack chairs, sipping something warm. "Morning," the man said. "Are you the host? Karen said you'd swing by to check the propane." Host? I almost choked. Before confronting anyone, I needed proof. So I hiked back, opened my deed folder, and started making calls. County assessor, land use office, planning department. And one by one, the truth slammed into place. No permits, no leases, no rights, no consultation. But the kicker? There had been complaints filed by Karen herself, claiming I was encroaching on her HOA land. That was the moment I decided. This mountain was about to teach Karen a lesson she'd never forget. I didn't storm into the HOA office right away. That's what Karen expected. She thrived on dramatic confrontations, the kind where she could raise her eyebrows, tilt her head, and act like she was disappointed in your entire existence. No, I wanted information first. If she built 9 cottages on my land, there had to be a trail. Paperwork, emails, signatures, something. So I drove into town and started with the county land records office, where the clerk, an older man named Bill, greeted me with the exhausted eyes of someone who had spent 20 years dealing with HOAs. When I told him what I found, he sighed so hard the blinds rattled. "Let me guess," he said. "Willow Ridge HOA?" I nodded. He clenched his jaw. Karen again. That wasn't promising. Bill pulled up the maps, overlays, and parcel boundaries. He even dug out physical survey documents. And every sheet confirmed the same thing. Those cottages were absolutely, undeniably on my land. But here's where it got infuriating. A few months earlier, the HOA had filed a request to extend community. Utility access along the river, bend. That sounded harmless, like adding a water meter or updating a pipe. But the description had been vague enough that it slipped through the cracks. Without deeper review, Bill leaned closer and lowered his voice. I think she used that approval to justify construction to her board. Probably told them the land was part of the HOA easement. Except it isn't, I said. Correct. She either lied or didn't care. Both were believable. After leaving the records office, I headed to the sheriff's department. If buildings were illegally constructed, surely someone would have noticed. But the deputy on duty, a guy named Harris, rubbed his temples when I explained. "We got a couple calls," he admitted. But every time someone reported activity at the river site, Karen called us too, claiming she authorized everything. Said it was neighborhood improvement. And that was enough? For minor stuff? Usually. Most folks don't build 9 full cottages. I stepped back, feeling the weight of the mess she'd created. Karen wasn't just confident. She was strategic. She had built an entire rental business under the shelter of HOA credibility, assuming no one would dig deeper. But the next part of the day confirmed something else. She knew exactly what she was doing. Because when I returned home, there was a letter taped to my gate. HOA letterhead, formal tone, signature looped in aggressive cursive. Cease unauthorized activity on HOA adjacent land. HOA adjacent. My land. She had doubled down. And right then, I decided I wasn't just going to prove her wrong. I was going to dismantle every inch of her operation. I didn't waste time after reading that absurd letter. If Karen wanted to weaponize paperwork, then so would I, except mine would actually be legal. The first step was getting undeniable proof, the kind no HOA spin or board meeting theatrics could twist around. So the next morning, I hired a professional surveyor named Collins, a quiet man with a laser scanner, a drone, and zero patience for nonsense. We hiked down to the river where the cottages sat. The guests wandered around with travel mugs and matching fleece jackets, completely unaware that their peaceful mountain getaway rested on stolen land. As Collins launched the drone, I noticed something that made my jaw clench. A fresh sign hammered into the ground. Willow Ridge HOA Riverside Retreats. Please respect community property. Community property. It felt like an insult carved into wood. Collins worked methodically, marking boundary points, scanning elevations, and overlaying the coordinates with official parcel data. After 2 hours, he packed up his gear and handed me a tablet. It's not even close, he said. Every structure is deep inside your property line. Some by 60 feet. 60 feet. Karen hadn't made a mistake. She'd treated my land like a blank canvas. As we hiked back, I noticed another vehicle parked near the cottages, a white SUV with Karen's signature vanity plate, 80A1. She was touring her little kingdom, hands on hips, barking orders at a contractor who looked moments away from quitting his profession entirely. When she saw me, her expression hardened into the kind of smile that animals show before they bite. "You're trespassing," she said. I almost laughed. "On my own land?" "This area," she replied, tapping a clipboard, "has been incorporated into Willow Ridge's extended community space. The board approved it. Your board can approve unicorns too," I said. "Doesn't make them real." Her eyes narrowed. "If you interfere with ongoing development, you'll be fined." "Karen," I said, leaning closer, "you built 9 cottages on property you don't own." "You're not fining me." "You're stealing from me." She scoffed. "You can't prove that." I held up Collins's survey report. "Actually, I can." Her face twitched. Just for a second. Fear, surprise, realization. Then the mask snapped back on. "That data isn't official," she declared. "HOA boundaries supersede outdated county maps." That was it. The final confirmation that she wasn't delusional. She was reckless. I walked away without another word. I had proof, witnesses, records, and a county clerk who was fed up with her. All I needed next were the right authorities and the right timing. If Karen wanted a fight, she had no idea how prepared I was to give her one. The moment I left the riverbank, I knew exactly what my next move would be. If Karen believed her HOA rules could overpower county law, then it was time to bring in people whose badges carried real authority. But first, I needed to orchestrate everything so she couldn't wriggle out, twist the narrative, or drown the truth in HOA jargon. I drove straight to the county planning office with Collins's survey report. Photographs of the cottages, GPS coordinates, and even screenshots of the cottage rental. Listings, all conveniently posted on multiple vacation websites under the host name, Karen Werho. The planner, a woman named Diaz, flipped through the stack with widening eyes. "She built 9 structures without a single permit," Diaz muttered. "No environmental impact survey, no floodplain clearance, no land use approval. This is a nightmare." For Karen, maybe. For me, it was finally progress. Within an hour, Diaz assembled a technical enforcement team, zoning inspectors, an environmental officer, and even a representative from the Department of Fish and Wildlife because, apparently, one cottage sat dangerously close to protected spawning habitat. They scheduled a full site inspection for the next morning. But I wasn't done. I also filed a formal report with the sheriff's department. Not for trespassing, that was civil. I filed for illegal commercial development, fraudulent land claims, an operation of unlicensed short-term rentals. Deputy Harris took one look at the paperwork and whistled. "Karen's been busy." "Too busy," I said. That night I barely slept. Not from stress, from anticipation. For the first time since finding those cottages, the situation was finally turning. The next morning, the convoy of county vehicles rolled down the mountain. White trucks, orange vests, clipboards, and people who looked like they'd been waiting their whole careers to shut down an HOA overreach. I followed them down to the river, and of course Karen was there. Hands on hips, lips pursed, clipboard ready like a shield. "What is this?" she demanded as the inspectors began marking structures, measuring distances, and photographing everything. "You can't be here without HOA clearance." Diaz didn't even look up. "Ma'am, the HOA has zero jurisdiction over private parcels not legally incorporated into community land." Karen blinked. "This is community land." Diaz held up the official parcel map. "No, it isn't. It never was." For the first time, Karen's confidence faltered, her voice cracking. "There must be some misunderstanding." "There is," I cut in. "You built a rental empire on my land. The inspectors continued documenting violations. One by one, little red stop-work notices were plastered on each cottage door. Karen's kingdom was collapsing, and she knew it. By the time the inspectors finished tagging all 9 cottages, Karen's bravado had cracked like thin ice under a heavy boot. She kept pacing, clutching her clipboard like it held divine authority, muttering phrases like procedural, irregularity, and HO, sovereignty, which only made the enforcement team exchange amused glances. But the real blow hadn't even landed yet. 2 days later, the county summoned both of us to a formal hearing. I showed up with organized files, printed evidence, drone footage, Collins's survey, and a USB drive filled with screenshots of her rental listings. Karen arrived with nothing but a binder labeled HOA rights, in gold embossed letters, which was impressive but completely useless. The commissioner opened with a blunt question. "Mrs. Jenkins, did you construct 9 rental cottages on land that does not belong to the HOA?" Karen straightened. "The land is in a gray zone." "There is no gray zone," the commissioner cut in. "This parcel is privately owned. The documents clearly state this." She tried shifting tactics. "The community believed the land was unused. Belief doesn't override property law." She switched again. "We made improvements, unpermitted improvements. Then desperation. We didn't know." That's when I handed the commissioner a printed copy of her rental listing description. It said, word for word, "Enjoy riverfront cabins located on privately owned land extending beyond HOA boundaries." The room went silent. Karen's face drained of color. The commissioner leaned back. "So you did know." With that, the hearing ended quickly. The ruling: immediate cessation of all rentals, mandatory demolition of all 9 cottages within 30 days, fines for every unlicensed rental day, reimbursement for environmental impact assessments, and the big one, compensation to me for unlawful use of private land. Karen didn't speak. She just stared at the table, gripping her binder so hard the metal rings bent. But the story didn't end there. The demolition crew arrived 3 weeks later. Guests were long gone, bookings canceled, and the once lively cottages now sat empty, plastered with legal notices. I watched from the ridge as the first one was torn down, the pine walls collapsing into a pile of splintered arrogance. Karen stood nearby, arms folded, eyes glassy with disbelief. For once, she wasn't barking orders. She wasn't lecturing anyone about policy or community standards. She simply watched the empire she'd built on illusion and entitlement crumble plank by plank. When the final cottage fell, the foreman walked over to me. "All clear," he said. "Land's yours again." I nodded. It always was. As I headed back up the mountain trail, I felt something I hadn't felt since the day I discovered those cottages. Peace. The river flowed again without interruption. The land was quiet, and Karen learned a lesson no HOA rulebook could save her from. You don't mess with a mountain that fights back.